The Doves of Nemerov. At the home of his friend the smith, Baruch now learned the whole tragic story of the unfortunate family of the Rav of Dabra Mizl. Rabbi Zavulun Mordechai was descended from the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserles. The family, at whose head was the famous Gaon, Rabbi Zachariah Yerucham, who had himself studied under the Ramah, after much wandering had settled in a village near Nemerov, where everybody worked on the land, and where they all drew their earnings from a communal cash box. In fact, they all lived together in such harmony and brotherhood that they were nicknamed the Doves. Thus, these people, called the Doves, lived their communal life for 3 generations, a wonderful instance of Jewish kinship, until the family, by then comprising some 70 or 80 souls, settled in Nemerov. Here the Doves continued their communal way of life. The older ones, who were past working, retired in comfort to devote themselves to Torah, while the younger ones worked and provided for all. Then came the never-to-be-forgotten year, 1648, when the bloodthirsty Bogdan Khmelnytsky organized the terrible pogroms, and Nemerov became one of the biggest bloodbaths for the poor, helpless Jews. Masses of them were slaughtered mercilessly by the Ukrainian butchers, and all but one of the entire family of the Doves were slain. It was nothing less than a miracle which saved the life of the one solitary survivor. This was the 11-year-old boy Zachariah Yerucham, the grandson of the Zachariah Yerucham who first came with his family to settle in Nemerov. Zachariah Yerucham ran for his life from the horrible bloodbath which he had witnessed, hiding every time he heard a suspicious sound and only emerging when it was dark to wander on to the next likely-looking refuge. Thus he wandered on for some weeks, worn out in body and mind, footsore, injured, ragged, frightened, and despairing. In this pitiable plight he reached Brisk. Some kind people took him into their home, but they could get nothing out of the terrified and sick lad. All they could gather was that he was the only tragic survivor of the horrible pogrom. By dint of their kindness and loving care, this family gradually restored him to normalcy. After a few weeks, he began also to visit other Jewish families. They were anxious to do all they could to make him feel he was not alone in the world. Eventually, Zachariah Yerucham became stronger and calmer, and very soon he began to attend the Beis HaMedrash, where, wrapped in a talus but without tefillin, he used to daven before the Amid and say Tehillim for the souls of the martyred Jews of Nemerov, who gave up their lives because of their Judaism. Zachariah Yerucham never missed attending shul, morning, noon, or night. Every morning after davening, he would recite Tehillim and then say Kaddish. After Mincha, he would study Midrash and Mishnayos, and after Ma'ariv, he would conduct a Talmud lesson for the worshippers. And so he took every opportunity of saying Kaddish and learning for those who had fallen innocent victim to the barbarous butchers of Nemerov. Zachariah Yerucham was a remarkable boy with an exceptional talent for study. He had a wonderful memory due to his brilliant photographic brain. He had to look but once into a sefer, and he remembered it for always. But he not only remembered what was written, he understood it all so quickly and well. This is why they immediately nicknamed him the Eloi of Nemerov. When he came to Brisk, he was only 11 years old, yet he knew several Masechtas by heart. The Rav of Brisk, the Gaon of Moshe Yaakov, took a great liking to the lad and recognized his capabilities. He therefore took him to his house and taught him together with his own son, Tzvi Hirsch, who was also a good student, but 2 years older than Zachariah Yerucham. The Eli of Nemerov was a very good-looking boy. Because of his tragic experiences, there was always such a sad look in his eyes. He also looked much older than his tender years on account of all he had been through. This led to some controversy among the congregants at the Beis HaMedrash. Since Zachariah Yerucham prayed before the Amid, the question arose if he was able to actually lead the services, for he was not yet bar mitzvah. Some objected that he was not yet bar mitzvah, while the Gaonim of Brisk contended that in his situation, Zachariah Yerucham was allowed to make the brachas over the talus and tefillin. For 6 years, Zachariah Yerucham studied most zealously. Then, when only 17 years of age, he was considered eligible for receiving smicha by the great scholars of Brisk. When the Rav of Brisk died, his son, the brilliant Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch, took over his position as the spiritual leader of the community. Zachariah Yerucham, meanwhile, had gone to Haradna, where there was a great yeshiva with the Gaon Rabbi Rafal David as head. This Rabbi Rafal David was a grandson of the Gaon Rabbi David Ziltzberg, a pupil of the Gaon Rabbi Yosef Katz, the Rav of Krakow, and a pupil of the Maharshah's pupil. For 2 years, Zachariah Yerucham studied at this yeshiva under Rabbi Rafal David. Here he became acquainted with the Rav of the town, the Gaon, Rabbi Binyamin Wolf, and became friends with his son Yehuda. During Zachariah Yerucham's stay in Haradna, he visited Rabbi Naftali Hirsch Ginsburg several times in Pinsk. The Rosh Yeshiva bestowed upon him the title of Meir Meirenu and wanted him to marry his granddaughter, the daughter of his only son, Rabbi Avram Shlomo. But Zachariah Yerucham had decided he was not yet ready for marriage. He wanted to undergo a period of self-imposed exile before settling down. While he was at the yeshiva, Zachariah Yerucham had heard of the greatness of the Maggid of Slutsk, Rabbi Betzalel, as well as the fame of the Gaon of Slutsk, Rabbi Aaron Moshe, who was already 110 years old and who had by then studied in solitude for a consecutive period of about 80 years. It was under these famous scholars that Zachariah Yerucham yearned to study. The old Gaon welcomed Zachariah Yerucham with open arms, particularly when he heard that the young man was a member of the famous family community of Nemerov, the Doves. Rabbi Aaron Moshe was also connected with the Ramah, who was the ancestor of Zachariah Yerucham's family. Zachariah Yerucham then left Slutsk and wandered through many towns and townlets, everywhere finding someone from whom he could learn something. In Kremenetz, he found Yeshiva Oil Yitzchak after its founder, Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen, a pupil of the Maharshal, and here he attended the shiurim of the Gaon, Rabbi Yechezkel Meir. Here, too, he found a veritable treasure of a library of the yeshiva books, and he spent weeks delving into them to his endless delight. Naturally, Zachariah Yerucham decided to visit Nemerov, his hometown, and the scene of the awful massacre of his people by Chmelnytsky bandits, from whom he had fled in terror as a child 10 years previously.